joining us here. We are live here with Faithful Politics Podcast. I am Josh Bertram. I'm your faithful host. Of course, we have Will Wright, our political host. Hey, Will.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Good.
It's a POV, so we don't have to be quite as formal. You know what I mean? Relax a little bit.
This is Faithful Politics After Hours.
This is after hours, dude. Not to be, never mind. I'm not even going to get into that. Warren Throckmorton is on the POV with us. A good friend now. Warren, I think this is the third time, Warren, you've been joining us?
Yes, it is. But who's counting?
Who's counting? Well, we got to send you, all the awards that we give to our third-time people. It's amazing. Well, you'll love it.
That's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it just for that reason.
For the robe and the ring. I understand. Yes. Well, Warren, thanks for coming on. Could you just introduce yourself to our audience who haven't seen you, and just and then I'll get into what we're talking about tonight. But would love for you to introduce yourself.
All right. Well, I'm sitting here in western Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Pittsburgh, but I'm in solidarity with you, Richmond guys. I've got my VCU. I know it's hard to see, but I got my Virginia Commonwealth University hat on. My daughter is there in your neck of the woods. She works for VCU, as does my son-in-law. So I have warm feelings for, and everything's very warm there. I just visited, and I'm retired as a psychology professor from Grove City College. Taught there 29 years, and I am loving retirement. This will be my friends at the college are about to start the fourth year that I've been gone, and I don't really rub it in much. Maybe a little
pick on day number one where you're chilling on the couch, little toe pick, you watching, doing things, and they're laboring away.
Well, I text them and ask them if they're doing anything that day, and maybe would they like to go to lunch or something?
Wait,
maybe hang out, and as if I have forgotten what they're doing.
I love that. And Warren, of course, you were retired from the professor, but you've come on to our show several times, not to talk about psychology, but to talk about, though we love psychology here at Faithful Politics, but to talk about your work regarding America, its founding, in particular, Thomas Jefferson, some of the myths that have grown up and even outright lies that have grown up around there. And so could you just introduce kind of a little bit of your work there, and then we're going to jump into our stuff for tonight.
About 2011, I started to, and there's a lot behind it, but we won't take time for that. I started to fact check claims about American history, particularly the founding era. And that led me to particularly focus on claims by a fellow named David Barton, although he's not alone in making half-truths or false claims about American history. But I started to fact check those. I worked in conjunction with the history department at my school, but it was a kind of career shift in a way. I continued to teach in my field and that, but I really focused on learning the craft of a historian. Even though I don't claim to be a historian, I feel like I'm really more of a fact checker, and that is a different kind of scholarship than what historians learn to do. Although over the years, I feel like that I've begun to think more historically, and that's since 2011. That's quite a few years, and so in those early days, I, along with a Grove City colleague, Michael Coulter, wrote a book called Getting Jefferson Right, and it was specifically in response to a book by David Barton called The Jefferson Lies. He brought his book out in the early part of 2012, and we brought our book out about a month and a half later. And what we did is we essentially fact-checked the claims he made in the book. Now, we didn't do them all. There were so many, but we took the ones we felt were key. And the upshot was, in August of that year, David Barton's book was pulled off of the shelves. The publisher, Thomas Nelson, stopped publishing it. They said that they couldn't trust the book's facts.
Wow.
And it was unprecedented for them. They'd never done anything like that.
They had never done that before.
Never pulled a book for historical errors like that. They'd asked authors to correct certain things in other books, but they'd never just outright done that, pulled a book off the shelves. They didn't just quit, publishing it. They pulled it off the shelves. I mean, they had a lot of books out around the country, in bookstores, but they got them back. They ended up, I think David Barton ended up buying them from the publisher. He got control of them, and he continued to sell them, but they got out of it,
So we have this. I mean, that's unbelievable, really. I mean, and it's amazing that you were able to produce something so unprecedented, and it came from a place of wanting to see truth, right? Wanting people to look at truth, wanting truth really matters. I mean, I understand what you're saying about this historical, thinking, like we treat history like it's right there just to pick up and look at, and it's so clear, it's just right here. And yet, when we do that, we actually make history up much of the time. This idea that it's like we're like looking through glass and we can see the scene on the other side, and it's just right there. We can perfectly understand it. But history is different. History is written, right? So people are selecting things. People are looking at things. People are trying to understand history, and thinking about that is so important, because when I think historically, it helps me live in the present so much better, because I start to think, wait, the past is completely gone. I can't do anything in the past. It's completely inaccessible except through the traces that have been left to us in the present that we can look at, understand, work through. And I'm constantly challenging myself with hey, the past, it's gone. Now we got to move on to the future. And yet the past is so important because it helps us situate ourselves. And this is why it's so important to be truthful about the past. And I want you to be able to speak on anything I've just said, if you wanted to react to any of that. But I wanted you to help people understand who David Barton is, right? So we know that you had a book that you essentially fact check, and it was a successful fact check. It sounded like wildly successful fact check. But who is David Barton? Why should anyone know that name, be concerned about that name, and understanding the kinds of books he's written?
David Barton is a political operative, really. I think if you really want to understand him at his core, that's probably the center. And the reason I say that, and for the Republican Party, maybe that I was assuming that people would get that.
No, that's good clarification.
Yeah, an operative for Republican causes. And I say that because he has switched positions on various candidates because the party has come around to those candidates. For instance, he began by supporting Ted Cruz. He had a couple of PACs that he was in charge of, and they were supporting Ted Cruz. And he criticized Donald Trump pretty substantially in those early days.
Really?
But then when it was clear Cruz was not going to win and Trump was going to be the Republican nominee, all of a sudden Trump became a candidate favored by God. He actually called him God's guy. Whereas before, when and I have this audio of him talking to a talk show host, and the talk show host asking, is Trump comparable to Ronald Reagan? And Barton said, "Oh no, Reagan was much more had much more ethics, and had a better value system," and really just slamming Trump. But boy, once Trump was the GOP standard bearer, all of a sudden he became God's guy. So that's really what you need to know. And so the history and the kinds of history stories that he tells, and he's been doing this since about 1988, 1989, they're designed to support Republican policies in the present. He claims that the New Testament teaches a certain kind of economic policy that basically every Republican policy is found somewhere in the New Testament, somewhere
Isn't
in the
that amazing?
Bible. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how that works?
Yes, it is, and every policy that the Democrats have
It's
is
condemned.
is not, and is somewhere condemned in the Bible. He says the Constitution quotes the Bible verbatim, and that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are based upon Christianity, based on the Bible. He gives the Republican Party not just a intellectual foundation for their policies, but a religious one. I mean, it's you don't get much more authoritative, do you, than God said it. And
No, you don't.
so the Republicans believe it. That's pretty much his role in the Republican Party is to base or to found their policies in history somewhere, but also within some kind of biblical worldview. So, and he's been doing this for a long time, and it doesn't really matter what what kind of errors you catch him in. He's too valuable to them for it to matter too much.
And so, what I hear you saying is that this guy has been clearly caught in like mistruths, publishing untruths, lies. I mean, I guess what would you call it? Lies, untruths, unfactual. Like it was so bad that the thing had to get pulled. And yeah, what I'm hearing you say is that his influence, his ability to influence, particularly people who are religious and in church and evangelicals. I'm throwing that in there, so correct me if I'm wrong from your understanding, but that his ability to do that has made it so, hey, it doesn't matter how many times this dude has been shown to be incorrect in something he's claiming. He's too effective for the Republican Party, so we'll move him over here. We'll change something here. We'll get him somewhere else, but he's got to stay where he's working for us. Am I interpreting you correctly, or what am I getting wrong? What am I getting right?
No, I think that's it pretty much. In the book, the new book, The Christian Past That Wasn't, I have a chapter where I talk about a couple of scenarios where Christian organizations knew and admitted to me and to other scholars, mostly Christian historians, that the material that they were disseminating to their audiences, to their constituents, they knew that the material was incorrect. And this is material that David Barton had either taught them or given them in the form of a speech or a video. They knew that it was incorrect, and yet they declined to tell their audiences. They declined to tell them that the material was false. In one occasion, a Focus on the Family representative said that they had done a thorough review of the false information and said it would stay on their website because it was beneficial. Yes, I was flabbergasted, and so were the Christian historians who got the letter, the email from Focus on the Family. Many of those historians had supported Focus on the Family financially. They'd used their materials. One in particular wrote back and was irate. This is what we do now. This is, the end justifies the means. Is that how y'all run your organization? If that's the case, then why are you in existence? So eventually, Focused on the Family did take down just that little bit. They had a speech. It was pretty long. Actually, it took 2 days to air on the broadcast. And there was one in particular point that was so egregious that they did edit that out, but they didn't tell anybody. They just took it out as if it never happened, Yeah. And so when a reporter from Politico contacted Focus on the Family and said, "Why did you guys take that out?" Are you acknowledging it was wrong? The person at Focus said, we didn't do it. We didn't edit it.
What?
They lied. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I don't know if they were mistaken.
They fibbed.
Prevaricated. They didn't say what was exactly accurate. And so the reporter said, no, we can hear it on the internet. You've actually got two versions up. The Focus representative apparently didn't know that, but there was one with the missing material, one without the material, and one with the material. And the reporter heard them both. Whoa. And so they had to basically say, well, we like Barton and we're not going to.
He's our buddy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
It. Yeah.
He's a good guy. Come on.
I do have, do you want me to pull up we do have a PowerPoint.
Oh yeah. We got a PowerPoint we can throw up there. Here's, one of the things, one of the things we do want to point out, right, is that normally you want someone with training in history to be writing on history, right? And making and developing the kinds of claims that David Barton is developing. And so since we're focusing on him, we're going to move on to him and the wall builders beyond that and talk more about method. But what kind of credentials are there for this kind of writing for David Barton? And have you seen similar things in other areas with conservative kind of maybe, I don't know, Republican think tanks and stuff like that?
Wait, hold on.
With this.
Before you answer that, Warren, I think I'm going to set you up actually
nice.
for a video because here at Faithful Politics,
we like to do things right.
I have a little personal note I want to share. Something I've noticed about progressives and liberals is how careless they are in throwing false claims around. For example, I was recently on a national television network where I was introduced as having a doctorate. A progressive instantly ran stories claiming that I don't have a doctorate. That false claim is amusing on so many levels. First, things like health information and tax information and college educational information are fully protected by privacy law. So they don't know whether I have a doctorate or not. And I've always chosen
David Barton, by the way.
Just for the record, I do have an earned doctorate. There it is. And third, not only do I have an earned doctorate, I also have two honorary doctors of letters from other colleges. And according to West Virginia University, the Doctor of Letters degree is reserved only for individuals who have the highest level of knowledge in their chosen subject matter. So for all of you critics, sorry to pop your balloon, but I do have an earned doctorate.
Well, there you go. So what can you say about that?
True, or what's going on?
Okay. Could you put that back up and freeze it just for a minute? I want to point something out.
Sure.
I have a little personal note I want to share.
Hold on. I got to figure out.
I have a little personal note I want to share. Something I've noticed.
You guys are going to have to hear that again.
Liberals is how
don't have to listen to the whole thing, but
for example, I was recently on a national television network where I was introduced.
Okay.
Yeah, pause it there. Okay. Now you see three. If you're able to see it, you can see three what look like diplomas behind him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the one on the right and the one on the left of the one in the middle. There's one in the middle there. All right. Now that is supposed to be the earned doctorate. Now he said he's chosen not to talk about it. Now let's just stop right there a minute. If you earned a doctorate degree, would you choose not to talk about it? Anybody who's listening to this, if you've got an earned doctorate degree, do you go through, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of torture and then say, I don't think I'm going to mention to anybody that I just went through torture to get this degree that's supposed to help me in my life, but I don't think I'll mention it. All right, just how probable is that? All right, that's for starters. Now, the degree in the middle there that you can't see. Okay, so he doesn't even tell you where he got it. So he really doesn't want to talk about it, right? Because he's not even telling you where it came from. He said the other two are honorary and they come from non-regionally accredited schools. That's fine, whatever. But the one in the middle, I'm thinking, why in the world would you hide it?
It is kind of hidden, isn't it?
It is, and you can't really tell what it says. But I don't know if you can see the reflection in the glass case. There's a reflection in the glass case. And so I had way too much time on my hands one day, and I blew that thing up. And so I found out where it came from. It came from something called Life Christian University, which is the IRS thinks of it as a church. It's with the IRS. It's a church. It's not even a school. It's not accredited by any regional accrediting body. And he didn't take a class or write a paper to get that degree. They just gave it to him because he wrote some books. And that's basically what happened. Now, he put that video up one day, and the next day I wrote a blog post, and I basically said, this is from Life Christian University. They give pieces of paper away and call them earned doctorates.
I want to
The next day, he took it down. He never talked about it. Not only did he not want to talk about it, he never talked about it again.
Until now.
Until now.
Well, I don't know if he's going to talk about it or not, but that is not an earned doctorate, which is funny because he said at the very beginning, liberals, they just say all kinds of things that aren't true.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. And anyway, that's what that piece of paper is. It's, and later, the president of Life Christian University acknowledged it. He said, yeah, we gave him a doctorate in Christian history. That's what they called it.
Oh my goodness!
But Barton never talked about it again.
But it's not like getting a doctorate in Christian history from Duke University.
From any university, not Liberty, from Cedarville, from any even reputable Christian university. You couldn't go to any of those schools and get an earned doctorate and do nothing.
Oh,
that's not how it works.
That is really true.
I took classes, I wrote papers, I took oral exams, then I wrote a dissertation, and then I defended it.
In front of a bunch of people that were really smart and wanted and asked you really hard questions.
Well, and he didn't do any of that to get his piece of paper. I don't know if he paid for it or didn't pay for it, but that's the story there. He claimed a degree he didn't have.
And just to help people understand, so the reason we don't just love picking on David Barton. That's not really the reason we're talking about this. If David Barton didn't have the kind of influence and then represent something larger, we really wouldn't care about it much, is my guess. Right. So when I'm looking at this, I would love to kind of move on, right? And again, what are we establishing? We're establishing that there is a contingency of people, some experts, some not, a lot of people with power that are trying to get this kind of message out. David Barton is very, very influential and very, he's useful for that. And so this is being spread, this is being propagated, and we want people to understand we're not just trying to bash people. We have huge claims being made, huge things being asked of people, votes to be made, donations to be made, things to be done. The world's falling apart. If we don't do this, our country's gone. This is how we get our country back. This is the message that gets spread. And what we're telling you is it's based on false claims. Yeah. And so that should be number one, thinking, maybe I should start questioning. And if he's not going to be honest, if we have people that aren't honest about the kinds of degrees that they've made, then that, you don't want to do the fallacy, right? Of what is it? The fallacy of origin or whatever, where or genetic fallacy, just because it came from that person means it's wrong. But when you look at a pattern, you want to turn up the skepticism dial.
Absolutely. Everything David Barton says is not false, but there is enough concern that you have to be skeptical. And the other thing is, this is the same standard that he judges other people with. In his book, The Jefferson Lies, he talked about Joseph Ellis, the historian, who is, I think, Pulitzer Prize winner. But Ellis made up some things about him, kind of in a Brian Williams way, made up some things about his past career. And Ellis was discovered, it was found out, and he had to apologize about that. Well, and he did, and he went on, and he tried to redeem himself. Well, in his book, Barton brought up those things that Ellis did, and he said, how can you trust a historian who makes up history? So he was discounting Ellis, but not using the same standard about himself. And that I think is what again just ratchets up the skepticism and the need to just check everything. And I say that about myself. Check me. I'm not a trained historian, but check out the primary sources, and that's what I'm inviting people to do. And if I'm wrong about something, I'll admit it and I'll correct it.
Yeah,
but that's what they won't do with Christian nationalist historians, is when they find a mistake or when there is a mistake that is found and it's a serious mistake, they simply won't correct it.
They'll kind of maybe do it under and not say anything, or
under the radar, right?
Under the radar. Don't want to ruin reputation. Go ahead, Will. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was going to ask if we should do one more non-serious one or get into some of the more meat and potatoes. What do you think? I've got one here on basketball.
Oh, on basketball. Let's do it. Sure, yeah. Throw it out there.
All right. Let's see. One order of basketball coming up. All right. Okay. Here we go.
Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 9:27, he says, I beat my body and I make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. I've got to make sure I have to whip myself into shape. Anyone who's been an athlete knows how this works. There's a lot of things you do as an athlete you don't particularly want to do. Remember when I was playing basketball, college stuff that we did? We started every day with a 5-mile run.
Then we lifted weights. Then we had an hour of racquetball. Then we had 2 hours of full court basketball. Then we came back for another run. It wasn't particularly enjoyable. But in those years, our college team set the NCAA record for 2 years in a row of most points scored. We've averaged 105, 104, 103 points a game. I forget what it was. But you had to run a lot. It wasn't a lot of fun, but you get the results.
All right. So what's going on with that? Did he play basketball?
Well, he may have played intramural, but he did not play Division I basketball for Oral Roberts University. The roster, which this is easily checkable. You can go online and see the rosters for men's Division I think women's as well, all the Division I sports. Going back, I forget how far, but certainly enough to encompass this claim. Men's basketball, 1971, 72. You can do this for every year that David Barton would have been in college, and he is nowhere to be found. When this claim came out, I, as well as others, called Oral Roberts, and they were just nonplussed. They had no idea what anybody was asking them. They said, no, he didn't play basketball on the team. And that's just for starters. The regimen that Barton described, oh my gosh, it sounds horrid. 5-mile run, racquetball.
I was wondering what the 2 hours of racquetball was.
2 hours of racquetball to play basketball? Anyway.
Very unorthodox.
Yeah, well, that didn't even seem to be true, because I asked the trainer, who was like a fixture at ORU. He's kind of a legend there, been there for many years. I asked him about that whole story. He said, no, Trick is what he called him. Ken Trickey was the coach. He ran the loosest practices ever All they did was run and gun in practice. They just had a couple hours of full court basketball. They didn't do any kind of drills. They certainly didn't play racquetball. I don't know for what team Barton was even talking about. Run 5 miles, play racquetball, play basketball. And now my basketball career stopped at 8th grade.
Same.
But I played baseball 1 year in college. I knew a lot of athletes at college, and I've never heard of that, playing racquetball to practice basketball. But anyway, maybe somewhere they do. Somebody might call in and say, "Oh, we do it all the time." I don't know, but anyway, they didn't, according to those who were there. And so that part of the story doesn't ring true either. That's what they did to get those points. Now that part was true. The ORU team those years, boy, they were a big scoring team, and so that part was right. But again, the fact that he wasn't on the team, and they didn't have that kind of practice schedule.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So why don't we transition to actual history. So these are in no particular order. So I'm just going to kind of put this up here, and you tell us what we're looking at, Warren.
Well, this is a slide that examines a claim in the Jefferson Lies. This is the book I was telling you about earlier that was pulled from sales by Thomas Nelson. And one of the claims in the book was that Thomas Jefferson could not free his slaves while he was alive due to Virginia slave laws. Now, Jefferson was certainly alive at the time this law that is portrayed on the screen was passed. In 1782, Virginia passed a law that allowed for what was called manumission, or the freeing of slaves. And he even cited part of that law in the book. He needed to do that because I guess he assumed that many of his readers would know that George Washington freed his slaves when he died. And so he had to say or explain some way, how did he do that? If he said Jefferson couldn't free his slaves during his life, then how did Washington do it when he died? Well, so here's how he got around that. And you can see from the book what he wrote. But in 1782, for a very short time, Virginia began to move in a new direction. And an emancipation law was passed declaring, and bear with me as I read this, those persons who are disposed to emancipate their slaves may be empowered to do so. And you can see the ellipsis there. He left something out.
Interesting.
Now, we're going to get to it. What did he leave out? All right. So, but he made it look as if it went together. To emancipate their slaves may be empowered to do so, and it shall hereafter be lawful for any person by his last will and testament to emancipate and set free his or her slaves. It was as a result of this law that George Washington was able to free his slaves, and in his last will and testament in 1799. All right, problem solved. Washington could do it. Jefferson couldn't. Well,
yeah.
Here's the problem.
Warren, real fast, can you sort of like set the context for that? As far as like what was?
Get that? Could you try again?
See, this is why AI is going to kill us all.
Here's a station just.
Oh no! Stop it.
Definitely,
she will not be denied.
This is the thing that really happens on a live show. Now I'm looking at my little thingy. I dare not say her name. Looking at her scan.
Its name. Well, its name.
Its name. Yeah. No, but can you sort of like set the context for the like the environment, the historical period, like why this was even like up for debate during that time. I mean, like obviously, like we should let all slaves free, but like why were these two white dudes talking about this? Like why is this important?
Okay, well, after the Revolution, during and before the Revolution, of course, there were laws that made slavery permanent for Black people, and so and forbid the freeing of slaves. So slave owners could not free their slaves. And that, I mean, there were exceptions. There were some exceptions where if you petitioned the legislature, maybe an individual enslaved person had done something that commended them in some way. Certainly that happened during the Revolutionary War. Certain enslaved people were freed. But in 1782, the legislature decided to make a move toward emancipation, to make a move toward, and there were calls for abolition in Virginia, was certainly more so in the North, but in Virginia there were calls for abolition. There was a lot of opposition to this law as well, but it did pass in 1782, and that was Barton's not wrong that they moved in a different direction.
Yeah. Cool.
Now, the context for this part of the book was that Barton was trying to rescue Jefferson's reputation. Like, if Jefferson really cared about liberty and the natural rights of man, why did he own slaves? And the whole tenor of this book is to rescue Jefferson's reputation. It's as if Barton is Jefferson's defense attorney, and he's got to make him look as good as he can. And so it's a natural question. If Jefferson is really supposed to be this great supporter of, freedom for all men are created equal, then why is he enslaving, some great number of people? And so Barton goes to rescue him, and in doing so, he deliberately omits part of the Virginia law on manumission that is in yellow. So, I'm hoping the audience can see that yellow part there. And you can see let's take that second section. It shall hereafter be lawful for any person by his or her last will and testament, or, that's a big or in the water right there, or by any other instrument in writing under his or her hand and seal, attested and proved in the county court by 2 witnesses, or acknowledged by the party in the court of the county where he or she resides. And to reside, you have to be alive. To take 2 witnesses to the courthouse, you have to be alive.
Yep.
To make an instrument in writing under your hand, you have to be alive. And after 1782, thousands of enslaved people were freed all up and down the Virginia coast. One of the greatest, the largest manumission of slaves prior to the Civil War took place in 1792. Robert Carter III freed 450 some enslaved people. Now, it took a while for it all to take place, but you can't say that Thomas Jefferson could not free his slaves because of Virginia law. He maybe didn't free his slaves because he wanted a big bad Monticello, and he loved wine. He spent thousands of dollars on wine, imported wine from France and elsewhere. He loved books, and he remodeled Monticello a slew of times. He also had another estate in the state. I mean, the man spent money, but he didn't free his slaves.
Yeah,
and he could have.
My question is like, why what's so important about Jefferson? Like Jefferson, I mean, there seems to be a few kind of like founders that those on, on the right, religious right, tend to just really focus more on than others. Like, you hear Jefferson, you hear Washington, some Madison. Like what about Jefferson, I guess, makes him, uniquely important?
Nature and nature's God, I think, is a big thing. Jefferson wrote the Declaration, at least the draft, and that was altered somewhat. But Jefferson thought of the Declaration as his document in a sense. He put it on his tombstone. One of the things that he wanted listed the authorship of that. Who's God? Jefferson was not an Orthodox Christian. He was, he said, I'm paraphrasing now, but he said, as far as I know, I'm a sect of one. He did not, he would certainly not be welcome in any of the Christian nationalist megachurches today. He didn't believe in the resurrection, didn't believe in the Trinity, and that was true at the time he wrote the Declaration. It was really important for Barton to throw doubt into that in his book. He said that, or implied, I can't remember just how strong it was, but he gave the message in the book that maybe Jefferson didn't really question orthodoxy until about 1813. Well, he would have been long past the Declaration at that point. I think they really want those mentions of God to be Jehovah, to be an Orthodox rendering of God. But Jefferson is an Enlightenment figure. He's kind of a amalgam of ideas. He thought the morals of Jesus were top notch, top flight, but he didn't think he was God. He took the Gospels, and in the White House, can you imagine if Obama did this? He took the Gospels and took a knife and cut them up, and took out the
no, can't imagine.
Took out the miracles, cut them out. He said it was as easy to figure out what is the real stuff as plucking diamonds from a dunghill.
That's a very Christian thing to say.
He stopped the Gospels before the resurrection came along. Now, Barton says that he did that so he could give it to the Indians to evangelize them.
Really?
And I'm thinking, what kind of evangelistic outreach are you going to have if you stop before the resurrection?
Seriously. So yeah, that's when didn't it say that he funded missionaries to convert the Kaskaskia Indians or something like that?
Well, that's a kind of another story. And that story, the Kaskaskia Indians, and I mean, this is another where you got to think historically a little bit. Jefferson wanted land. He certainly wanted to expand the United States. And so one of the ways he did that with the Kaskaskia tribe was to supply storehouses where the native people could basically go into debt. He undersold traders, fur traders, other traders of anything the Indians might want. And so instead of buying from them, the Indians began to buy from government traders, and they went into debt. And this was by design. Jefferson thought, well, if they really go into debt in a big way, they'll use their land to pay it off. Got them now. So they'll just give us their land, and we'll have that, and they'll satisfy their debt. And so he authorized that whole scheme with the governor of the area that was relevant, Illinois, and there in the Midwest. And to seal the deal, one of the terms was that they would they have to move the Kaskaskia into a smaller area for them to live. There weren't very many of them left, and anyway, they were going to move them into a smaller area. Jefferson wanted them to learn agriculture. Anyway, so they were going to farm a much smaller area, but I think they got like 9 million acres in satisfaction of this debt. And the Kaskaskia had already been evangelized by the Catholic priests, by Catholic missionaries. He didn't send missionaries. They had already been evangelized and converted to Catholicism. And so what did he do to help seal the deal and get this large area of Illinois? He said, well, when we move, we'll build you a new church. We'll also pay the salary of your priest because you've already, been converted. You're attached to the Catholic faith. And that's the deal. So he didn't send missionaries like he wanted to convert, these unconverted people. It was part of a treaty, part of a transaction.
So I love this because this is one of those examples, right? Because a lot of times when you hear things like this, and this is what makes a lot of this so confusing, because there's real mixed in with not real.
Yes, absolutely.
Or there's a fact that's thrown in, and then there's an inference that's made that takes it way beyond, or maybe context needs to be supplied so that you understand it more. Right. Like what you just said, they were already evangelized. Well, that wasn't put in there. This was doing it because they had literally, this was part of getting their land from them, part of a scheme on Jefferson's part. And it's like, that doesn't sound as nice as him sending missionaries to evangelize, And it's like, but he did have, a document there was, right. There's some factual basis, right. And this is where for him to build, right. He's building off some facts, right. And I guess even moving beyond Barton, for us to understand methodologically, we can see people can take things that are factual and they can take them places that they should not go, or remove context, things like that. And that's part of the appeal. Oh, look, you can find it. You can look it up on Wikipedia. Some on Wikipedia, it exists. They don't read anything else. They're done. Oh, it exists. It's fine. But they don't, right? It's enough to get people sort of believing it. But if anyone's really skeptical, they can look in more. But that's why we turn up our skepticism, a dial in the head. Go ahead. You're saying something.
Well, the other part of this situation, to help us kind of put it into the proper perspective, is that the tribes were considered nations at the time. They were not citizens. And so this is brought up, this story of sending missionaries to the Kaskaskia Indians, as a First Amendment issue. They want to say, the First Amendment doesn't forbid Christianity from influencing government or some mixture of Christianity and government. Look what Jefferson did. He spent money to evangelize the Indians. Well, first of all, no, he didn't. But secondly, it's not a First Amendment issue anyway, because the tribe, the Kaskaskia tribe, in a sense, were not. It was not a matter of spending money to do something with other citizens of the nation. It would be kind of like negotiating a treaty with Great Britain or France, and deciding, hey, we'll give them some religious trinkets or something. We'll do something that they like, just to get our way with them. And there's nothing in the First Amendment that says you can't do something religious with another nation. It says Congress shall make no law establishing religion in the United States. So if, that is a different matter. And so I think it's important to see the context, what was happening at the time, who was the arrangement with, and, it wasn't a matter of It's a little maybe another analogy would be the president's fund on AIDS. We spent a lot of money overseas to prevent AIDS, and some of that money went to religious organizations. Now there were First Amendment issues raised with that. I know some people thought no, we shouldn't do that. Other people thought, well, these are foreign governments, foreign countries. And so I think that it just becomes a different issue when you separate it from the First Amendment. Look about who is it that's getting the funding, who is it that is making the deal. And in that case, you can make a pretty good case that it really isn't a First Amendment issue at all.
Can we look at one more? We got I think we have one more on deck to have you help explain some of the falsehoods. So there you go, Warren.
Okay. All right. So this John Adams is a favorite of Christian nationalists. They love to quote him because it's easy to find quotes from John Adams that fit their perspective. In some cases, though, you really have to piece them together. I've got a piece of paper with some John Adams quotes to provide some balance, but let's just take this one. Okay, see on my left, the wall builders square. Now look at the bottom of that square, and you'll see something enclosed in red. You'll see a quote there, enclosed in red, and it says, "The general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. I will avow that I'm having trouble reading, that I then believed and now believe that those general principles of Christianity are so eternal and immutable as the existence and attributes of God." Now, that sounds like Adams is saying that the revolution, the founding of the country, is based on the general principles of Christianity, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, look at the square beside it on my right, and you'll see bold print in those two paragraphs. Do you see the bold print?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are the only two sentences that Barton actually used to get that quote that he attributed to John Adams.
And no like ...
No. I mean, you don't even get the ellipses. But John Adams wrote to Thomas Jefferson in 1813, and he said a whole lot more than what's in bold print. Now, at risk of boring, the listeners and watchers, it's really important, and I can actually see this. It's really important to get what they missed. This is what Barton and again, Christian nationalists quote this constantly. So this is what they don't want you to see. So the general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the only principles in which that beautiful assembly of young gentlemen could unite. He's talking about the volunteers and all the people who fought. And these principles could only be intended by them in their address or by me in my answer. And what were those general principles? I answer, the general principles of Christianity. And what does that mean? In which all those sects were united. And the general principles of English and American liberty, in which all those young men united, and which had united all parties in America in majority sufficient to assert and maintain her independence. All of a sudden, it gets a lot more general. I mean, just in Christianity, what everybody could agree about.
Yeah.
Well, everybody couldn't agree on the resurrection. Everybody couldn't agree on the virgin birth. John Adams didn't even agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly Jefferson, the guy he's writing to, didn't. Now, I will avow, and this is in the first quote, that I then believed and now believe that those general principles of Christianity are as eternal and immutable as the existence of attributes of God. And, again, the rest of this, they don't want you to read this, and that those principles of liberty are as unalterable as human nature and our terrestrial mundane system. I could therefore safely say, consistently with all my then and present information, that I believe they would never make discoveries in contradiction to those general principles. In favor of these general principles in philosophy, religion, and government, I could fill sheets of quotations. Now look who he's going to name here. Is it the Apostle Paul, Peter? Is it Moses? No. It's Frederick of Prussia, from Hume, Thomas Hume, Gibbon, Bolingbroke, that stalwart Orthodox Christian, Rousseau, oh, there's an Orthodox guy, and Voltaire, Newton, and Locke. Well, you're getting a little closer there. Not to mention thousands of divines and philosophers of inferior fame. You know, Adams is a witty guy, or was a witty guy, and he wrote really flowery letters and everything. He's basically saying, though, that the revolution brought together everybody, all the atheists, all the Christians, all the people, all the Whigs, all the people who believed in British liberty. And for that time, they agreed and they united around those principles. But for some reason, Barton doesn't want you to know about them. He just wants you to think that it was the general principles of Christianity that they united around. But when you see the rest of it, what John Adams said, you understand what John Adams is getting at. Everybody came together, no matter what they believed, around certain principles.
That is so. All of this is like I love it. We have some Q and A that we're going to jump into, but I want to talk about something that's like we have some Q and A from someone who sent it over to us, and I want to ask these questions because I think it's really important, and one of these things that one of our viewers asked was some right Christian nationalist claims, or a claim maybe even separating from that to avoid confusion, but some claims about the nation's beginning that talk about how the Bible was frequently quoted. And even something like the Constitution being deeply influenced by Deuteronomy. Is this something that you can talk to for us? What obviously they're very Christian at the time of the founding. Most of the people were Protestant, from my understanding, right? There was religious diversity in America, but most were Protestant, and not all, of course. And but what do you make of that claim? What do we do with a claim like that? That maybe you can help us even walk through how would we even start to test that claim, and then in your work, how has that claim fallen?
Okay, I think what the questioner is referring to is a study by Donald Lutz. He was a social scientist, and he is no longer with us, but he published a study that purported to look at a sample of political writings in the period, I think it was 1750 to 1810 or something like that. It was roughly during the Revolutionary period. And what he did was he wanted to see who the writers used as their sources for their political ideas. And now he didn't try to figure out whether they were positive citations. In other words, if he's reading this political treatise or a political pamphlet and the person refers to John Locke, maybe John Locke is saying something positive about natural rights. So he marks that down for John Locke. But maybe somebody is writing something and they disagree with John Locke. They say John Locke's all wet. He still marks down a citation for John Locke, even though he's disagreeing with John Locke. Now, the Bible was sometimes mentioned in some of those political pamphlets or articles in newspapers. But again, the same thing you have to keep in mind. You read along and somebody says, well, Deuteronomy such and such says this. That's a plus for independence. But somebody else might be writing and saying, Romans 13 says, obey the magistrate, obey the people over you. And they're a loyalist for that reason. And they say, hey, we need to not rebel or revolt. And so you see it could cut both ways. And so, but he's just counting them. He's just counting the citations in political literature during that time frame. Now, the other thing you have to know about that study is that many of those pamphlets were reprinted sermons. Now, I don't know, Josh, how many Bible verses you use in a sermon. I'm going to guess there's a few.
Indeed.
Okay. So, if a minister reprinted a sermon and it had a political theme to it, see, they even preached politics back then. There would have been quite a few Bible verses. So Don Lutz just ticked them off. He just said, okay, there's a citation. There's a citation. It's Bible. It's a Bible citation, Bible citation. So in my judgment, that probably inflated the number of Bible sources because you use a sermon, you're going to get a lot of Bible verses. And probably a lot of Bible verses on the same point. Yes. Where the Lord is, there's liberty. I'm making this up, but so you have these citations all for one thing, but he's counting them all. So when he counts all these up, he finds out that actually the Bible is a pretty, numerous. There's a lot of citations of the Bible, and particularly Deuteronomy.
And this is Lutz who did this study that's counting these up. Yes. Just
Donald Lutz.
Sure we're following. Yep.
That's right. Now, how the study gets misunderstood and misinterpreted is that you'll have Christian nationalists say that the founders referred to the Bible more than any other book. But that's not what the study did. The study didn't look at what did the founders read or what did the founders write. It was political literature of the day. If you could get something in print, you might be able to get in Don Lutz's study. These were articles in newspapers. These were pamphlets that were published. That was a big deal back then. It was kind of like our social media. People would get pamphlets published and they'd be widely distributed. And so those were the kinds of things that Lutz used for his sample of material. So it wasn't the founder's citation. And I see this all the time. And it's again because of David Barton and others who just misread the study, and they say what the founders were looking at. Sometimes I think they're doing it on purpose. Sometimes I think they're just expanding the definition of founders to just anybody who lived during the founding era, anybody who could get something in print.
There you go.
But it wasn't the founders like most of us think of founders. The Washingtons, the Jeffersons, the Madisons. Those are not the people that Don Lutz limited his study to. And so it's not accurate to say that the founders quoted the Bible more than any other source. Now, here's the other thing that is important to notice. Lutz did a study in a study. He was very curious about the constitutional period. He wanted to know of the people who, in that 2-year period, 1787 to 1789, when the Constitution was being debated and ratified, from the time in September of 87 to the ratification of the Constitution, he wanted to know the people who were supporting the Constitution versus the people who were not. Those people, did they cite the Bible? Did the supporters of the Constitution cite it? Did the opponents of the Constitution cite it? What he found was people who supported the Constitution in their writings did not cite the Bible at all. They were not using the Bible to support the Constitution's ratification. The people who were opposing the Constitution, the Federalists or the Anti-Federalists, they did, but not very often, but they did. And so the way to think about it is if you supported the Constitution in that time period and you were writing about it publicly, you were not citing the Bible. And that's something that no Christian nationalist will ever tell you.
So the Constitution isn't just directly based on Deuteronomy?
Well, I hate to break it to you.
Millennium?
I hate to break it to you. Now, there's one other piece of information I should add to this. If several years ago, David Barton was making the claim the Constitution is based on the Bible verbatim, that you can find Bible verses in the Constitution word for word. And I thought, well, I can read the Constitution. I know that's not true. But it got me to thinking, if there was a strong religious influence on the Constitution, surely I would find it if I read the debates and minutes of the debates to the Constitutional Convention. And we have those. James Madison did an amazing service by writing down everything he could remember about the debates. Other delegates did too. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages, but it's listed day by day through the summer, May through September. And so in 2017, I treated it like devotions. Every day I read the minutes and I logged it on my blog. I said, basically, day one and read it. And I said, okay, I didn't find any Bible or religion. Day two, well, didn't find it today. Day three. Yes, it's kind of like that.
Dear diary, no religion in the Constitutional Convention again.
Yes, right. I went all through the summer and did a series every day and told readers, what did I find that day? And I found, 6 or 7 citations where a delegate or, would say something that sounded a little bit religious. And I listed that. But was there anything, major, or was policy really tied to? Did anybody say, hey guys, let's go to Deuteronomy and find out what Moses said? No, it never happened. And that's when I read about Ben Franklin and his call to prayer that only 3 or 4 other people wanted to do.
Hey, Warren, we have a question that I'm gonna throw on the screen here. It's more of a question to learn about you.
Do I have any published literature?
Yeah. And you do.
I do.
Quite a bit.
I'm glad you asked.
Here, hold on. Here comes my chance to really shine. Boom! Look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's the new one. It came out in May. The Christian Past That Wasn't. It's available anywhere books are sold. and I recommend it. It's okay.
I do too.
Do you?
Except David Barton's, except Wall Builders. I don't think they're selling.
No, that's true. That's a good point.
So not where all books are sold.
Well,
but
that's
most.
Right.
Fact checking. You also have, right, the Jefferson.
Yeah, there's this one, the Jefferson Lies, Getting Jefferson Right.
Getting Jefferson Right.
Yeah, that's the first book with Michael Coulter, and it looks backward on the screen. But anyway, there's that one.
Well,
so yes, and then I blog at Substack, but you can find most of that at christianpast.com. I would say that's probably the best place to go for most things. And we're talking about David Barton, and I'm with you, Josh. I'm not in this to tear people down, but
yeah, absolutely.
I just think that's for you need to know where people are coming from, and
yes,
the first season of my podcast, The Christian Past That Wasn't. It's in season 3 now, but the first season I called it Telling Jefferson Lies. And it was all about that year when his book was pulled. I wanted to do sort of an inside look at it because some of that story had never been told. And I wanted to tell that story. So if you go to, again, anywhere you get podcasts and look up The Christian Past That Wasn't, the first season of that is all about this book and about David Barton's book that was pulled.
Well, we definitely want people to go check that out and check out your website, check out the Substack, check out your books. I'd love to end here, unless we have another question, kind of just hear, Warren, kind of give your heart, like, we've been talking and you just say, this isn't about bashing people. And I want to reemphasize that, David Barton, whatever, he's a person. The problem is what's being disseminated in his name, what's being put out, and then how that's reflecting on Christians, how that's reflecting on people that value the truth. And all Christians should value truth, but Christians aren't the only ones who value truth. And so I just would love for you to kind of just speak from your heart, like why this is so important to you, that people are taking a critical look at this, and maybe just kind of encourage people, give us some encouragement on how we can kind of move forward together with this. Just whatever comes to your heart as you're talking.
Well, when I got started in this, it was in part because I became aware, and I don't know any other way to say it. There was an awareness that separation of church and state was a critical part of our rights. That
yes,
the religious freedom, the First Amendment rights that we have to assembly, to our religious rights, are potentially under attack. That a Christian nation, as on the surface, that may sound desirable to people who identify as Christian, but that invariably, when in history there has been a Christian nation, people who get persecuted are also Christians of different types of Christianity, of different, stripes of Christianity, but it's not a safe thing to advocate for your own team when that team is divided. And as Christianity is, I mean, Christianity is not one thing. And I see on social media a lot we must return to Christianity, or the state must embrace Christianity. And I ask, which kind, which one? And I just am concerned, and I guess I'm kind of beating around the bush here. Honestly, at my age, I'm mainly doing this for my kids and grandkids. I want them to have the same rights that I feel like, we should have, we all have. And that is, freedom to assemble, freedom to worship, freedom of speech. And I feel like that in a society, and I know there are data to support this, when religious rights are under attack, so are all other rights. I just see it as a domino effect. Religious rights are under attack, so are other rights. And I feel like that's a very important thing, is to support our religious rights. And one of the things that puts our rights under pressure is this false history. We see it with the current administration. I don't want to go too far into that, but there is an effort to control the telling of the American story on the part of the administration that leaves out a lot of the a lot of the ugly parts. And so what else could there be about? Why would they do that? Well, it's to affect the present. And I just think we need to have, I think historians right now are critical to do their job.
Yes.
And even though I know I'm not professionally a historian, I want to do good history as good as I can, as well as I can. And I think we all should strive for that.
I think we all should, yes, and we all should, everyone should at least watch one YouTube from a good quality source on historical method.
Yes. Right.
I know that sounds like everyone's favorite thing to do. They're just jumping out with excitement. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic, but seriously, it is so important. It's going to make you just a better thinker in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, historians are just asking questions that all of us would ask. They're just using logic, but then they're bringing it to the past. And there's specific ways that you ask about the past that help you work through it. And it would really help everyone if we had some sense of how historians do their job. And I just appreciate you, Warren, so much on coming on here, spending time with us. We love it. So here is do we want to put this question? We did get one more question. One was about the Bible being metaphorical. I didn't think it was super relevant.
Yeah, I don't think it's relevant. Sorry.
But I already responded, but there was one about the government wants to force the son of Mary worship on Sunday.
Yeah, it's
okay, that's not really. Well, we'll try to get that later. Thanks, Michael. But Warren, thanks for coming out with us, spending time with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what the fourth visit gets you.
The same thing the third visit got you.
It will get you.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't wait for that then.
With Trump's picture.
Well, thanks, Warren. Wow. Really appreciate you. And hey, guys, thanks for stopping by. And we will see you next time on the next POV. Until next time, keep your conversations not right or left, but up. God bless.
All right.